having you. I'm really pumped to be here today for a lot of reasons. One is just because of how many folks here that I love, but mainly because of this story I'm going to tell you about. The story I want to tell you today is a story that I love, and I love it for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons I love it is it's an amazing, awesome story. Stuff happens in this story that'll just blow your mind. And in fact, one of the things that tells you that it's so mind-blowing is it's one of those stories that people who are skeptical about the things of God, especially as found in the Bible, it's one of those stories that people say, oh, that didn't happen. Somebody just made that up. That's just a legend. That's just a religious fairy tale that the people who like to call themselves Christians made up. And there's just no way that really happened. And so it's an important story. Maybe you know some folks like that. Or maybe you kind of are a folk like that. I want you to know, if you're in this house today and you're going, I don't know if I buy all that Bible stuff. I don't know that I buy all that Christian stuff. You're in the right place. If Lakeside is your church home, our folks that are not sure about the Lord, are they in the right place this morning? I'm sorry, our folks who aren't sure about the Lord in the right place this morning. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I knew who I was talking to. Because if y'all said otherwise, I'd have other places I need to be. But, and I got lots of friends who are like, oh, that didn't happen. And I'll be honest with you. There's plenty of times, I've been a Christ follower since I was teeny tiny. There's plenty of times that I have my doubts. There's plenty of times that I wonder to myself, is this all really true? Or is this just something that I like to hold on to make myself feel better? And it's okay if you don't have doubts like that, but I have doubts like that. And so actually, that this is one of those amazing, awesome stories that people go, well, that's true or not. The reason I love this story is because it's actually got stuff in it. If you look close enough, they'll give you reason to believe that nobody made this up. There is stuff inside the story itself that if you look at it, if somebody was making up this story, they wouldn't make it up this way. All right? So it might seem like a made-up story to some, but if you actually see what's in the Word, you go, if somebody was making it up, they wouldn't make it up that way. But there's one other thing I love about this story, and, well, I'll just tell you straight up. What's in this story is why I follow Jesus. So, here's the story. You'll see the first verses should be on the screen. Those will be on the screen. I'll read them for you out loud if you don't like to read along. But here's the story, and it might sound familiar to you, or it might not, but either way, here we go. It says in the book of Luke chapter 9, it says, Jesus took Peter, John, and James with him and went up on a mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. Now, the story starts out kind of not unusual. Peter, James, and John were Jesus' three closest. He had the 12 that followed him around, but Peter, James, and John were like his three closest of his close. They were like his three amigos. Those were his closest people. All right, Peter, James, and then he takes them up on this mountain to pray. That wasn't unusual. He did that a lot. A lot of times he would take his leaders. He would say, come aside with me. Let's go up here and pray. And they would often go up on a mountain. I don't know if you're the kind of person who sometimes when you're out in nature, or especially up on a mountain, you feel closer to God. But in their culture, the higher a place was, the more spiritual it was considered to be in that culture. And so when he takes them up on a mountain to pray, they know we're going up for some kind of intensive prayer time with our rabbi, with our leader. And so that part's not unusual. But then you see the unusual part as he's praying. So they're up there praying. But as he was praying, as Jesus was praying, the appearance of his face changed and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. Now I know this is church and it's easy for stuff to look at when you're not there. But think about this. Have you ever been out someplace at night on kind of a stormy night, but you didn't really know it was all that stormy, and it hadn't started raining yet, maybe kind of a hot summer night, late August or something, early August, and all of a sudden you're driving, and all of a sudden there's a flash of lightning and it just lights up the whole sky. Has that ever happened to you? You can say yes, no, or I don't know. Has that ever happened? Yeah, and it's amazing. It's like one bolt of lightning, just like, whoa. That's the technical term. And it's just amazing. But notice, it didn't say that his face and his clothes flashed like lightning. It says they became as bright as lightning. So it wasn't just and then it was over. It's like, and it stayed bright like that. Imagine, the only way you can imagine this, imagine a bolt of lightning shooting through the sky that never stopped and lit up the whole. Imagine how bright that would be. So his face and his clothes become bright as lightning. Now this story, as you may well know if you've been around church much, is called the story of the Transfiguration. Transfiguration. Somebody say Transfiguration. It's one of those words that's kind of hard to say sometimes. But see, the technical definition theologically of transfiguration is this. Quote, to transform into something more beautiful and elevated. But one biblical scholar says about Jesus' transfiguration, something I like. He says this, those who saw Jesus this way are simply seeing the core of what Jesus has been all along. Think about that. When it's like, and Jesus is just, his appearance is just radiant and just man, you couldn't get a pair of Ray-Bans dark enough to make it not kind of make it verge your eyes. This wasn't like, oh, here's just something special. No. This was a revelation of who Jesus was all along. I like that. And it's really interesting. This is the only time in the whole Bible that this ever happens to Jesus. If you don't know the Bible that well, don't think that like every other chapter this is happening. It's not like, and Jesus went here, and suddenly he was, and once again he was, no. This transfiguration, it only happened once in Jesus' whole life. So this is a completely unique event in the life of Jesus, the transfiguration. However, there is one other time in the Bible when somebody's face became bright and was transformed into something radiant. It's in the Old Testament. It's in the book of Exodus. And it happened when Moses brought the Ten Commandments down from Mount Sinai. Well, a little Bible trivia here. Maybe you don't know this. Moses actually brought the Ten Commandments down from the mountain of God. He actually did that twice. Little Bible trivia. The first time that Moses came down the mountains carrying those 10 stone tablets with those 2 stone tablets with the Ten Commandments on. The first time he came down like that, he came across the people worshiping a pagan idol, and he got so mad and became so angry that they were worshiping false God that he took those 10 Commandments on those 2 stone things. And you remember what he did? Smashed them to the ground. By the way, it's the only time in human history that anybody broke all 10 Commandments at once. Whoever blew on that one, you understand. That's a bad teacher joke right there. But just, only time, all 10 at once. I still think it's funny. But anyhow, but see, so the 10 Commandments have been smashed. So then Moses goes back up the mountain, and God makes him again. And this time, when Moses comes down from Mount Sinai, look what it says. It says, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the law in his hands, this is the second time, look what it says. His what? I'm sorry. What does it say? His face. Dennis, are you teaching me something to talk about? I thought I was going to have some help in here. His face was radiant. There's that word, that radiant, like. His face was radiant because he had spoken with the Lord. When Aaron, that was his brother, who was kind of helping him lead the people, when Aaron and all the Israelites, he was leading Moses, his face was radiant, and they were afraid to come near him. They were freaked out by it. They were blown away by it. And so, as strange as this is, that Jesus' face and appearance becomes transfigured and it becomes just this radiant thing. It's not entirely unprecedented. It had happened, something like it had happened once before, and it was with Moses. Now, think about that. So, the only time that somebody's face has ever become radiant like this in the entire Bible was when it happened to Moses. So look what happens next in the story. Oh, I love this story. Look what happens next. Then two men appeared and began talking to Jesus. And guess who one of them just so happens to be? Moses. Now, here's where you start getting skeptical. Well, even if Jesus did get transformed into something radiant, Moses has been dead for who knows how many centuries. No way, this is just a story. How is it possible for Moses to appear? I can understand that skepticism. But so the only person whose face has ever been transformed, been transfigured, been radiant like that, suddenly he appears. And then Elijah appears, and they appeared in glorious splendor. So here's Jesus, and Jesus is like, whoa. But then Moses appears, and he's like, whoa. And then Elijah appears, and he's like, whoa. That's the title of today's message. You know what it's called? I'm glad you understand it. I'm glad you're feeling it now. Now, see, we all know Moses was a big deal, right? You know Moses, Charlton Heston. We all know that Moses was a big deal. The Ten Commandments, the great lawgiver. He's a big deal. But see, Elijah was a really big deal too. Moses was the great lawgiver. Elijah was considered in Judaism the religion that Peter, James, and John, well, and Jesus too for that matter, were raised in. Elijah was the greatest of all the prophets. Anybody who knows the background of Judaism knows that Elijah was considered the greatest of all the prophets. And so Moses is the greatest of all the leaders because he gives the law. And Elijah is the greatest of all the prophets. So when Moses and Elijah start showing up and talking to Jesus, I mean, in our day, this is like if Jesus had been ministering to Chicago, this would have been like if I don't know, if all of a sudden he was transformed and all of a sudden he was standing there talking to Michael Jordan and Walter Payton. This is Michael Jordan and Walter Payton at once. Sports reference. Anyhow, so you got to understand something. This is a big deal. Because to Peter, James, and John, this is the law of God. And see, to them, the law of God is not like, here's the rules, thou shalt follow. No, to them, they love the law of God. God gave them the law because God loved them. And God said, you're special to me. And I want you to take my word to the whole world. My law is a gift to you. You talk to anybody who understands the history of God's people, the Israelites. They did not see the law as a burden or a bunch of rules they had to follow. They saw it as this precious gift. All right? And that God would send his prophets like Elijah to speak to them. They're like going, ooh, man, look how much God loves us. He sent people like Elijah to speak to us. And so Peter, James, and John, they're good Jewish boys. All their life, they've been hearing about Moses and Elijah, the law and the prophets. Moses and Elijah, the law and the prophets. These are the two biggies. These are the two biggest people. And suddenly, they're talking to Jesus. And they're standing there. And it's really interesting what it says. It even says what they were talking to Jesus about. The Bible says that they were talking, that Moses and Elijah were talking to Jesus. See what it says? They spoke with him about his what? Who could read that word? His departure. So this is not long before Jesus dies on the cross and is resurrected and returns to the Father in the unseen realms, otherwise a.k.a. heaven. All right? So they're talking to him about what he's about to go through. Jesus is getting some crisis counseling. He's about to go through something. And God says, I'm going to give you somebody to help you get you through. I hope this is a house when you're going through somebody. God can send you a Moses or an Elijah, somebody who's been through some stuff. Because what's interesting, that word departure, in the original language of the New Testament, that word departure is literally the word exodus. I would say Moses knows a little something about exodus, wouldn't you? When God sends somebody to help you through what you're going through, he's going to send you somebody who's been through what you've been through. God intends for this house not to be just a place where folks are nice and they'll comfort you and be there, but you're going to find yourself somebody. If you're struggling with addiction, we'll help you find somebody struggling with addiction. If you're struggling in your marriage, we'll help you find somebody struggling in your marriage. If you're trying to get over a divorce, heck, talk to me. I've been through one. I'll help you. If you're struggling with your finances, we're not going to hook you